Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Bill. Morning, folks. Afternoon, evening, midnight, 3 a.m., wherever you live.
Whatever time zone you may habitat right now, right?
Country, continent.
I don't know if I said that right. We're on episode number 329 today, 329. And here is the title of today's episode. Genius and Simple Creative Real Estate Offer Theory Exclusively Revealed. Here's the description.
Okay.
Why is it that when learning creative real estate, it is so hard to wrap your mind around what offer to make to what seller with what situation? And it seems like everyone has their own way of doing it. Which ones are right and which ones are wrong? And why do you have to do deals to figure out who is correct and who is not? What if you don't want to take those or take that risk to figure it out? How the heck do you get out of the learning mode and into doing deal mode safely so you can make some money and start building freedom so you have more time to do deals? What if you were not taught the entire offer formula and how to use it like the big players? In this single podcast, you're going to finally see what the creative real estate players are not telling you unless you go behind the curtain of a $20,000 or $30,000 coaching program. And I promise you will be surprised how simple but fundamentally important when making creative real estate offers that get accepted by sellers. I also promise you have never heard this before, so make sure you listen all the way to the end because it has got a lot of information.
All right, sounds good.
Here we go. So first of all, let's do our housekeeping. We record this podcast every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, mostly because that fits Peter and my schedule. Sorry about that if it doesn't fit yours. But if you want to be part of the podcast, or if you have questions, or if you'd like to have input, you can go to Facebook, you could go to YouTube, or you can go to Twitter, because we are live streaming to all three of those platforms as we record right now, as we're speaking, as a matter of fact. And you can go there and leave us comments, preferably to the subject at hand in the podcast. If for some reason you want help with creative real estate, you can go to our group, which is on WhatsApp Messenger. Just type in Let's Talk Real Estate and you can find it there. And you can be part of the creative real estate group there and get a lot of your questions answered there. Or if you have specific questions and would like to speak to me personally, or have a question for Peter and would like me to pass it on to him, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/support, or just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and go to the top right-hand side of the screen and it says support. And final, if you're listening to us now, whatever platform, whatever video, whatever sound you're hearing us from, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you know when we are broadcasting, because we put out a lot of content, or I put out a lot of content, and you're going to want it if you're trying to understand creative real estate. You're going to like all the goodies that I send out there into cyberspace. Okay, so make sure you're connected to us and hit the subscribe button and give us a review. Wherever you are, give us a review, good, bad, or indifferent. So that we can see whether our effort, because this takes, like I have said in the past, it takes me 5 or 6 hours a week to put this whole thing together, which at $500 an hour, I think that's pretty significant. You may not think so, But I literally make $500 an hour, like for real, and Peter can attest to that. I mean, when I'm doing my stuff and in the middle of my deals and talking to lawyers and creating deals and doing creative REI replay stuff and all that kind of stuff, that's actually a conservative number. So,
Well, yeah, all you do is you think, how much money do we make on that deal? 20, 10, 30, $40,000. How many hours did I put into it? Geez, 20, 15,
yep,
20, 28. When you do it right, they don't take a lot of time.
yeah. So I obviously do my own deals. I obviously have my own. I run flipping houses for rookies, and there's materials I sell on there. Plus I do creative REI replay. Plus I do coaching. So yeah, it's a little busy, and a wife and 2 kids, and of course Peter.
Yeah. And Bill cooks and cleans.
Yeah, I do. I like
He
to
cleans.
do that.
He's a good boy. He's a good barbecue man.
Yeah,
He's the guy with the cigar, no apron.
yeah.
But
And
Christmas
a grill,
is coming.
a massive grill, a
But
massive
Christmas
grill.
is a massive grill and cigar. But Christmas is coming.
Yeah, good. All right, so let's get started. That's enough of that chit chat about the house cleaning, housework, whatever you want to call it. In other words, we're here to help you, and if you haven't figured that out by episode number 329, then you should probably find another podcast to listen to, because we're not for you. All right, Pete. In podcast number 328, which is the one previous to this, in our world it was last week, because we do them every week, right? I spoke about the 3 great rookie conflicts in creative real estate today. And those are 1, your offers are bad. 2, not enough outflow. And 3, environmental distractions or your personal space is out of sync. Okay? And in that podcast, I spoke about number 1. If offers are bad, that comes from an out of balance offer given. Right? For example, the seller wants too much, or the deal is tipped too much on the seller's side, and not enough on your side or your buyer's side, right? So that's kind of a funny phenomenon that I saw many years ago, because what happens is, I've spoke about this in many podcasts, is the seller is not cognizant or aware of or even cares about where the money's coming from to pay them. In other words, the buyer's under the assumption that the seller's under the assumption the buyer just has the money in a savings account and they're just going to write a check and they can buffalo them. They can win them over.
Yeah, my favorite part is they think they can ask whatever they want because it's their house.
Right.
You can ask whatever you want. See how that works out in the real world.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The offers tip too much in the seller's benefit and not enough in the buyer's benefit.
You're not saying they're greedy, are you?
Yeah. The second thing that you need to know is the offer could be tipped too much on your side, on the investor side or on the buyer side, right? And the seller feels gypped, or the seller thinks that you're taking advantage of them by asking too much to solve their problem. You're asking for too much equity, which is always what it is. It's the equity that we make all our money on, right? The equity and the cash flow, right? So you're asking for too much equity or too low of a payment, and the seller feels gypped.
I like how you say they think and they feel.
Right.
Because it could be true, but it could be like they just don't understand, and you're trying to do something decent. They go, "Oh, it's not right." You go, well, "You don't understand how the numbers work out here."
Right.
So that's well chosen words.
Thank you. In other words, the offer is out of balance. That's my new way to describe it. And I know there's not anybody talking about this. I know because I listen to a lot of stuff and see a lot of stuff. So even though this is a clever way to describe the lack of deals being done phenomenon, because that's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, I want to reiterate this. I should trademark it, actually. Seriously.
What?
If you're not making money from real estate, either not making money or consistently making money, it's one or all 3 of these things. Your offers are bad or out of balance. The there's not enough outflow, you're not talking to enough sellers,
Yeah.
or your environmental distractions are keeping you from doing real estate. It's one of those three things. It is not anything else. It's not my bad teachings. It's not any of those. Because I promise you, if you do these three things, if you actually, and by the way, how do you make a good offer, Peter? Can you tell me in one sentence how you make a perfect offer?
Well, as far as I could say, you really have to find out from the seller what they're trying to do. And if you can accommodate them in what they're trying to achieve.
One sentence, Peter.
It's a long one.
Oh, we're still in the same sentence?
Oh, yeah, it's comma, semicolon, comma.
I'm going to shortcut you. I'm going to shortcut you and give you an example. Peter,
Yeah.
do you have a house for sale?
Yes, I do.
Good. What would have to happen for you to sell it to me today?
Oh, that one. Well, that's the question we use at the end. If nothing else works, I was trying to be
My
from
point
the
is
beginning.
everybody's always worried about what they say to a seller. That's it. There you go.
Yeah.
Let them just tell you what they want.
Yeah. What always I have to try to remember in my head and remind other people is who makes the offer. And this has been said on many times, and it's easy to forget.
Mm-hmm.
But the seller's supposed to make the offer.
Yeah. Unless you're in the real estate world, then you make the offer and they want you to chase them.
Yeah.
We're not realtors
Well,
for a
how
reason.
how much you gonna pay? Well,
Yeah.
how much do you want? Well, I asked you first. No, I asked you second. But look at it this way: if the person asks a certain amount, and you pay a certain amount, how do you not buy it?
Right.
How do you not? Like if somebody says, "I got a hamburger. How much? $1." Okay, I'll give you $1. No. Well, you just said $1. Yes. So if they tell you what they want in the house, and if there's any way you can do it, you do it. I mean, if you can't do it, you just don't do it.
So let's play a game for a second. We're way off script. Let's play a game for a second. So we're from Connecticut, so it's easy for us to go to Manhattan. So I want you to envision being in Manhattan at Times Square, where the New Year's Eve ball comes down, right?
Yep.
You're standing in the middle of Times Square, and you look up, and one of those great big billboard electronic signs says this: not everybody wants money for their real estate. What would you think? Because
I mean, there would probably be about 200 or 300 people staring up with their mouth open, going, "What?"
right. So money doesn't solve all problems. It helps, and I'm not degrading money, because money is important. And why is money important? Because, as we say, money is backed by confidence. Right. So if you give me your guitar and I give you $100, you're confident you can get anything you want on planet Earth for that $100. You can even go into other countries and get what you want with that $100. So if you want to buy a bicycle, or if you want to buy your wife a ring, or if you want to buy a piece of toast, you can get it with that $100. That's the confidence. So don't get me wrong, money is important because it's backed by confidence. But not all deals are solved with money, because you might get money, but it may not solve the problem. Because money can't buy everything. They say money can't buy happiness, right?
Yeah, but I'm working on it. Hey, I've talked to people, especially last year. A guy had a property, $700,000. He didn't want all the cash, because if he did, his capital gains would be ridiculous.
Yeah, there are people, and me being one of them at points of my life, where having money is a problem. See, my old man taught me that at the kitchen table over a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning. Anything in scarcity or excess is a problem. I don't care. If you don't have enough money, have too much money. Not enough sex, too much sex. Not enough food, too much food. Right? Not enough cars, too many cars. Right? Not enough jobs, too many jobs. Any one of them is not good at an extreme. Oh,
There's
yeah,
balance again.
Oh yeah. By the way, Democrats too far to the left and too far to the right, and Republicans too far to the left and too far to the right is not good either.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the balance we're talking about, just like what you said.
Yeah, balance, yeah.
Right. So I was thinking about this a bit lately and realized this is bigger than I thought. Because I'm constantly, and you know this because this is all I talk about amongst my deals, is I don't understand. Why can't they do deals? It's so simple. And you're like, yeah, but Bill, you have all this experience. And I keep trying to strip it down and strip it down and strip it down. So I'm constantly trying to be, so my life is a constant TV show.
Yep.
It's called Undercover Boss.
Ah, yeah.
I'm constantly down trying to put myself back in the trenches and going through what new people are going through and trying to solve those problems.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing that happened to me is I decided I wanted to do a 2-day rapid fire workshop. Right? So JR is in the house. Hello, JR. He just logged in. He said, hi. That's for you, Peter.
Okay, well, hi, JR. Hey, do we know where JR is? JR, where are you?
I think he's in Texas, but I could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
He'll tell us in a minute. So I'm kind of like thinking about this rapid fire workshop. And I would get clients, the concept is this, I would get clients to a Saturday and Sunday event, work 3 or 4 hours per day, each day, just 2 days, and get the attendees to do a deal the following week. And promise that. With me watching
Wait
over...
a minute. Promise? How you promise that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go over that in a minute. With me
can't
watching
promise
over
that.
them so they don't make any mistakes. So not only am I going to show them on Saturday and Sunday, but I would watch over their shoulders so they don't want to make a mistake.
And that's what everybody wants. Help me. Make sure I don't screw up.
So
I'm
this
not
is
sure.
this is not
Help
a
me.
this is not, in my mind, this is not a course. This is not coaching. This is tipping the barrel of a partner and a deal.
Yeah.
So what do I so I wasn't sure of these things now. Now this is what's in my mind. This is what I'm thinking. How could I pull that off? Because that's what I do. Is I put the ideal scene there and then I try to back my way into it. Like, how can I do it? And I test myself and test myself and test myself. Come on, there's got to be a way to do it. Emma, my youngest daughter, who was my assistant for 5 or 6 years, used to tell me, Dad, you can't do that. And the more she said it, the more I'd want to figure it out. And then I would find some book or somebody would make, and I'm like, look, they did it, so I can do it. We got to figure it out, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I wasn't sure about these two things. A, if I could make such a bold promise. And B, if folks would want this and pay what it's worth.
Yeah.
So I pulled a bill. And I developed a survey to get a feel for what was needed and wanted and if this would help students. Which, by the way, one of the questions that I asked in the survey, I thought about going over all the survey questions here, but I think I would just bore you. But I went over, there were about 15 questions, and one of the questions was, how much do you think it cost you by not doing deals?
Oh, that's a good one.
Then a few minutes later, 2 or 3 questions later, purposely intended this way, I asked, what do you think this course is worth? And the answer was, very often was either thousands, cost them thousands, which was only 1 or 2. Most of them put millions.
Oh, geez, millions.
And very many of them said that the course would be worth millions.
So you can charge $2 million, right?
I wish.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that those people that put those questions there would want to split a deal with me. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of people that were like, oh, I'll split the deal with you. As if that's a benefit to me. I don't know why people say that to me. Well, if you mentor me and help me, I'll give you half the profits. Well, if you didn't have me, you wouldn't have any profits. So first of all, if I could do it all on my own, then what do I need to split the profits with you for? What is your exchange? So basically, you're going to go find a deal for me and and I got to pay you 50% of the profits to find the deal when I currently give $750 or $1,000 for a good deal. Like I'm doing a subject to deal right now. That's a nice deal, and that's what the guy's going to get. He's going to get $750.
The person who gave you the lead?
Yeah. But here's the thing. He came to me with a subject to deal and had no clue what to do and was asking me to school him, and I tried to do it a little bit. He was actually asking me for coaching for free, which I can understand that. Most people want that, right? Thinking he's going to split a deal with me, and I'm like, no. It's like asking a surgeon to have an intern come in and do surgery with him, where the surgeon's got you wide open trying to do surgery, and instead of paying attention to what he's doing on you, the patient, he's paying attention to what the intern's doing, and he might miss something with the patient.
And get paid half of it.
And only get half of the profit or half the money to do it.
Less quality, less everything, and less money. Not a good deal.
So, anyways, that's my little bit of a rant on that. So, now, even though I'm still in the middle of figuring this out, something else happened to me. Here's what I figured out. So, I and everyone else I know have been teaching creative real estate offers wrong. And what I mean by wrong is it's not that they're incorrect, it's that it was too steep of a gradient. It was out sequence. There's an underlying point that nobody talks about. And I'm going to give that to you, but I'm going to just kind of I want to go through the sequence of how it happened in my mind so you can fully understand the significance or the importance of what I'm trying to teach today. Because this is major in my head. This is major.
No, if you're missing a step, I'm all ears, because I don't think you've had this conversation with me yet, so I'm all ears.
Right.
So I'm always looking for you have to have things in sequence and don't miss a step, because I feel several times like, well, how did I get here already? I missed something.
Totally.
So go ahead. Let's see what you got.
So now watch this. My current system shows how we text sellers. Right? And the purpose of the text is to ask if the seller or the person you're texting, first of all, has a house and if it's for sale.
Yep.
And then the next thing is the texter wants to know, you want to know, are they willing to talk about it? That's all a texter does. And I have very many students that do this incorrect. They try to negotiate in text. Can't be done. Because here's what happens. Negotiating has a two-side story. It has the intellect, which is all the numbers, and it has emotions. And texting takes out the most key part, which is the emotions. The inflections of the voice, the communication lags, the different tones of the voice.
You can say something. You can say something a whole bunch of ways.
Right.
But you listen to how somebody says something. Like, you okay?
Right.
What are you so happy about? What are you so mad about? That's not easy to write unless you say he said madly. But we don't do that when we're texting. We just have raw information. You can't tell.
So back in the day, obviously technology is evolving, definitely in my world, right? So back in the day, I had a coaching client. His name was Tim. And he was the one that actually found this system called Text Magic, where you paid nothing for the platform and you just put in your money, $10 or $20, and you could, excuse me, you could group text. So in other words, you can upload an Excel spreadsheet, and we would send out 25 texts a day, right, which was enough. And then it would group text. In other words, the outflow would be all 25 at once, right?
Yep.
And then they would individually respond, and you had a platform where you could see who was responding and then have an individual conversation with each person responding to the text.
Yep.
So you could have a broad text and then handle it individually.
Yep.
That's how we started with it. Then we went into REI Replay. Actually, we did a couple other things. We used a couple other software. Sean and I used a couple other softwares, which were a complete disaster. I don't even want to talk about them. One of them, I can't even remember the name of the platform, is a very common platform that did not work very well. I can't remember the name of it now. I could see it in front of me, but I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, and then we landed with REI Replay. So for 3 years, 2.5 years, we used REI Replay, which is $50 a month, $49 a month, and we use that to do all of our texting.
Yep.
Since then, we've evolved into obviously being partners with REI Reply, and we now own Creative REI Reply, and it does a lot more than texting, believe me. Okay, but that's the point. Is the text is just to find out if A, they have a house, B, is it for sale, and C, are they willing to talk about it? If yes, they wanted to talk about it, we would pass those leads into what we call the opening caller or the opening caller script. And the purpose of the opening caller is to find out if the seller is willing to talk about monthly payments, and if not, would they be willing to talk about some sort of a discount? 10%, 5%, 3%, 20%, 30%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which, if you realize, I'm walking you right into my loan to value ratio of my 7 core offers. Right? So here's the point, is the opening caller is not where you negotiate. Again, this is where most students make mistakes. They either try to negotiate on text or they try to negotiate in the opening caller setting. It's just a pre-qualifying point. Once the opening caller gets the seller, their willingness to talk about one or both of these ideas of taking monthly payments or some sort of a discount, it would go to the closing caller.
Right.
During the closing call, we discover why they are selling. So that's where you would get the math of the deal and what the seller is willing to do, aka the intellect, which is the math, and the emotions. And I am here to tell you with great, massive experience of talking to thousands and thousands of sellers confidently and competently in my own world. And I've proven this to so many people, because if you're in my Let's Talk Real Estate app, there are many times, which I haven't done in about a month or two, but in about a month, but there are many times where I do my actual live closing calls on a Zoom, and people will log in for free and watch me actually do the live closing calls and hear me and watch me talk to people. They'll watch me on my screen. What am I typing into the system? What notes am I taking? What research do I do before I actually call them? It's the whole gamut of what I do when I'm looking for a deal, so you can get that reality, right? And that's been amazing, right? And the world is funny, because at one point I was trying to actually sell a membership where every month you would get a couple of those calls, and it flopped. It was amazing to me. So many people want to hear me talk, and then when I give them,
it doesn't make sense. I've been with you for years, and so many people want to be over your shoulder, because how many courses can you do, workshops you can attend, but when the rubber hits the road and you got to talk to somebody, it's not the same thing. Right. It's not theory time, boys and girls. And then you offer somebody a chance to see how it's done. I've been in the car with you, and you talk to a seller for somebody who's listening on the other side, just to help them out with something, and they're just flabbergasted what it sounds like.
Right.
It's just not what you expect.
Yeah.
It's so real.
It's very casual, yeah.
No.
Okay, so that's kind of the system that we use, right? Now what I have done, and I've only done this in Creative REI Reply because of the training in there, which, by the way, the training in Creative REI Reply took me 10 years to figure out how to put together. So it's very concise, very easy, very simple, including it has checklists. So once you figure out which deal to do, it has checklists and all that stuff. It's kind of ironic, because while we're on this call, I just got a text from Sean, who's one of my other partners, right?
Yeah.
So he just says the calculator is added with a SSI to be able to show off on the 7 o'clock call tonight. So we do a coaching call or a support call every Thursday night. Are you part of that?
Oh, no, I haven't been. I'm usually working on the nights.
Oh, okay.
But
anyways,
it could be.
So the calculator,
some of the stuff I need to see.
I have devised a calculator in my mind that Sean, God bless his soul, has helped me with. And the point of the calculator is to put 5 or 6 numbers into the calculator, and it tells you which one of the 7 deals you can and can't do with a red, yellow, and green light.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is that these 7 offers are core offers. They're not hard to learn. I put all that stuff in Creative REI Reply, but most important, what got me on this little rant is that I created what I call a solopreneur script, because a lot of people don't have a texter, an opening caller, and a closing caller, because the way they're designed is they're 3 different jobs, and they have 3 separate duties and 3 separate processes with 3 separate outcomes.
Right.
And that's how you measure them. So if you have VAs, then you would do that. But with a solopreneur, you can't do that. It's one person that does all 3. They text, and a lot of that data I get from you, watching you work, or when we do our support calls on Creative REI Reply in my coaching group, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
so actually next week we're going to cover. We're doing a series here, a series of 3 or 4, because I'm hitting each point. The offer, right? The
Marketing.
Marketing. The outflow, and then the distractions. Next week we're going to talk about the distractions. Anyway, so let's move on. So this whole process that I just talked about, which is the texting, the opening call, the closing caller, right, follows my 4 steps of every deal. So there's 4 basic steps of every deal.
Yep.
Right? And one that is find and communicate to a motivated seller. 2, tell them what you do, which is I buy houses with monthly payments or a discount. 3, find out what's needed and wanted, or what is expected, when the closing happens. So find out what they expect to happen when the closing happens.
Yeah.
Right? And 4, of course, give them what's needed and wanted, which is what you were saying earlier, right? Give them what's needed and wanted. So we do that. We pay them with one of my 7 offers. So those 7 offers are all about the financing, all about the strategy of how they're willing to receive the money. Whether it's borrowed money or profit. But those 7 core strategies are how we deliver the money.
Yep.
Now, some of those strategies, and I've never said this before, and I'm going to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent here, and I'm spending way too much time to get to the point. But I promise you, the things I'm talking about right now will just nail the point in, really slam it in when we get there. Okay, so here's what happens. Some of the deal structures convert the seller from being a homeowner to an investor because the asset stays in their name.
That's right.
Some of the deal structures take the asset out of their name and turn it into money. For example, a lease to own or a lease to buy or rent to own, as we call it, the asset stays in the seller's name. So the deed stays in their name. And the only reason why we're able to do a lease option is because we don't need to put money into the deal. Because if we put money into a deal, then we now want to make sure that the deed is in our name to protect our cash or our lender's cash.
Sure.
Otherwise, we can't protect it because the seller can say, I don't want to do this anymore and walk away, and you got $10,000 in a deal that you can't get back.
That's right.
Right? So the slot deal, the option deal, and the rent to own are all strategies that you need no money, you need $100 deposit, and you control the property, just like Nelson Rockefeller said. Like, own nothing. The way to keep wealth and keep it, the way to keep wealth or make wealth is to own nothing and control everything. In other words, you own a business. You control the business. You can own the business, but you control the business, and the business makes all the money, and then you can do whatever. So in real estate, we do that with real estate. So we can buy a property from the seller, and we can rent from them with an option to purchase, and then pass on that profit to the buyer, right? Or get our profit from the buyer. So to do that, we want to make sure we have 15% worth of profit and about 20 or 25% in cash flow to do that deal. And I've never been prouder of myself in my 30 years than I am right now. And I'm serious. And the reason why is because I've stuck to these formulas. And there's, like for example, Pace Morby does subject to deals, and he doesn't talk about these percentages. Joe Crump is the same way. He talks about these deals. Ron LeGrand talks about these subject to deals, but there's no percentages. So at 95 cents on a dollar, they're telling you if it makes sense, just go ahead and do a subject to deal. Problem is that when the market dips like it is right now, we're in 2022. When it dips like it is now, you end up in trouble because there's the equity goes away. Right?
Yeah, and now you're upside down.
Yeah. Right?
Bill, I haven't heard anybody when you started talking about loan to value. I thought that was just a thing. Nobody has that. No, because buying a house is not buying a house. A house exists in many conditions, like it's got no equity, or it's completely free and clear, or somewhere in the middle. It's all different. You can't do the same things depending on where the numbers are. It's different. This is a big deal.
It is huge because if you look at it,
loan to value is a big deal.
I know we're diverting, but if you look at it, listen to what I'm telling you. Listen to me very, very loudly now, because I've never been this concise with it, because I don't think it's important to explain, because it's the theory behind the theory. This is the Einstein shop talk, right? So here's what happens. We don't acquire a deed until subject to, which is 80% loan to value ratio, which means there's 20% worth of equity or profit. The reason why is because we don't take a deed until we have 20% worth of profit, because that's when it's safe, because most markets don't swing more than 20%. So what's going to happen is, you might have a piece of property, and especially right now, and a year from now, it's not going to be worth $100,000, it's going to be worth 80, and a lot of people are worried about that. Well, if you keep to the formulas and do as I explained, so what? It might be worth 75 in a year from now, 75,000. But if you're getting cash flow, it doesn't matter, because see, here's the magic that not enough people talk about. Most of my deals, so it's price, it's payment, it's duration, and deposit if they talk about it. Yeah. I try to keep my durations up in the 7-year mark, and I talk about how the durations are because you want to have 2 years for a renter, 2 years for a renter, 2 years for a renter, and 1 out of 3 will cash you out, right? The real truth of the matter in my mind is any cycle is a 5-year cycle. So if it dips, just hang on for 5 years, it will come back.
Yeah.
So the term has a lot to do with everything in the transactions in today's environment, because it's going to dip. Let it dip. I mean, I've got a subject to deal right now that I practice what I preach, right? I'm putting up $36,000 to take this person out of foreclosure. You want to know what's motivating me to do this deal? Nobody's asked me that. I've told the deal to 3 or 4 people. What's motivating me is it's got an interest rate of 2.5%.
Which you talked about probably a year ago, knowing that with inflation and the stupid things happening, that mortgage rates would go up. And if you could buy something at 2 or 3% that somebody would have to pay 5, 6, 7 for, you're on the right side of the numbers.
Now watch this. So the payments are $1,013 right now at 2.5%, at $230,000.
Okay.
You take the same $230,000 and you plug in 6%, and the payment goes to $1,900. Yeah. Now watch this. I have to borrow $36,000 and I have to pay $270 because of the 2.5% and the current market value. I have plenty of room to pay the $270. Now my payments are $1,238 a month. I still have $600 or $700 a month in positive cash flow because of the way the deal is structured. So it allowed me to do everything that I just did because of that.
And you said this last year.
Yeah. All right, so we got way off topic. After reviewing all of this stuff, I realized something very basic. and out and talking to sellers, right? Now pay attention. What is it that we really needed to do through the texting, opening call, and the closing call? One, we needed to work on what you need to know. So if I'm talking to a seller, there's certain data I need to know. And I've simplified it and said you need to know the price, the lowest price. You need to know the payments, the lowest payment. You need to know the term, the longest term, and if they want a deposit. In other words, what is needed and wanted. What do they expect when they sell this property? What do they want? Do they want relief or do they want cash? One is need, the other one's greed. Right? Joe Crump talks about that. One is need and one is greed. So need is they want the problem off their back, and greed is I want to take the money out of this property and go do something else with it. Right? So number one, you need to work on what is needed. What do you need to know about the transaction to make it happen? You need to know what data do you need. And I feel like I and others have kind of made that simple, although our listeners may not think that right now because that might be their first time listening or something like that. But the 4 datas that you need, or the 4 datums you need, is price, payment. And by the way, payment doesn't have to be just from your seller. What if you have to go borrow private money? Like I just talked about. Like I'm doing a subject to deal. The mortgage payment's $1,013 and the private money guy is $270. I need to know that before I can make the deal. It's not just from the seller. I need to know that. It's a vital piece of information. And duration. How long is my private lender going to go? The first mortgage I can go forever because it's subject to. And how much do I need down? In this particular case, I need $36,000 down. So I need those 4 pieces of data. So number one, and this is what I realized, number one is, what data do you need to know? Well, that's been a struggle, and I feel like I've really made inroads on that. But what I didn't realize is number 2, which is the secret, the thing that's out with making offers. Number 2. What do you do with the data once you know it? Where do you put it?
Yeah.
And here's what I always find. I'm going to go off script again. Here's what I always find with my coaching clients, because I work with them closely, or students that I talk to one-on-one, or support tickets. Here is what I do know. They can't evaluate the difference between important data and miscellaneous data. And I could tell you right now, if you want to piss me off, and you could do this, if you want to piss me off and you want to pop my balloon, send me a support ticket and tell me all about the house. 3 bedrooms, they renovated, it's got a new roof, it's got a new furnace, it's got 15 shingles, it's painted yellow, there's 45 neighbors that do barbecues there, there's a deck on the back, and the seller spent... That's a seller trying to sell you.
Absolutely. When I heard that, I said, that's the seller selling the dude. He said, it's sold or be sold, right? And they're sold. Oh, the guy told me all about the house. Who cares? You're not living in it.
None of that affects the property.
Bill, when people start telling me about that stuff on the phone, I say, look, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to be living in the house. So can we talk about what we can do with the house? Because, sorry, I don't care.
Now listen. We say this tongue-in-cheek, which means without much meaning or much saying. But let me explain why we say this. So I just went over the texting, the opening call, the closing call. The end result, so the texter's end phenomenon or end result or final product or KPI, whatever you want to call it, right? Key point indicator, whatever that is.
Well, I never heard that one.
Yeah, KPI, that's a military term, right? So the texter is, they're willing to talk about a house they have for sale. The opening caller is, they're willing to talk about either taking payments, monthly payments, or a discount. The closing call, the end phenomenon, or the final result is they sign our memorandum and they're willing to move on. So all 3 of those actions are all about the seller's motivation. Has nothing to do with the house. The next
No,
step,
you don't even ask stuff about the house when you're making calls. You just go right into it.
the next step, and you build rapport by talking about the numbers, right? The next step is the deal meeting. Now, the deal meeting is where you're going to do your due diligence. Now you're going to go see if the value is correct. You're going to make sure the neighborhood is good. You're going to make sure the house is not dysfunctional. You want to make sure it's pretty, not ugly when they told you that, or vice versa. You want to go do your due diligence after they've proven their motivation. Because I'm not going to go waste my time, especially 1,500 miles away, because we're in Connecticut and Akron, Ohio, and send my guy out and spend a couple $100 to do an inspection and read a report and follow up with him. And I'm not going to do all of that until I know the seller's ready to do something. And
Yeah, the house doesn't matter if he's not going to sell it to you.
right, on your terms, right? So the point is that you need to know what questions to ask, right? And you need to know that the datum is like, it's kind of like, it's kind of like vitamins, right? Some vitamins, you eat them and they go into your system right away, and some of them have a certain way that they go into your system all day long, right? Kind of like in electricity, it's called slow blow, like a slow blow fuse. In other
Seen those.
words, it doesn't snap right away. It's got an element in it that will allow a surge and then not trip the breaker, right? So in real estate, it's called slow blow. So anyways, my point is that this is how real estate is. It's a lot of it has to do with the timing of when you talk about things, and people get that mixed up. And so that's what I'm talking about here. So it's what information you need, and really when, and the other is what do you do with the information once you get it, which is the out point, which is the major confusion of making offers. Because if you know what to do with the data, you can reverse manage it. Now, what I have done is I've talked about this memorandum. The memorandum is what they're going to sign. So you want to get the information to fill out the blanks on the memorandum. So that's what your goal should be, is I have all these, which is, by the way, the price, the payments, the duration, and deposit if they talk about it, which is where I came up with that whole system is what do you do with the data when you get it? And that's what's confusing to most people, because they allow information that is irrelevant, like the house, and they think they're building rapport, which is a bunch of bull crap. That's just reading too many sales books from people that don't get closing ratios of 40-50%. Okay? Grant Cardone, you just said it, be sold or be sold. Grant Cardone, he's too much of a salesman. I mean, Grant Cardone, I don't know if people know this, but Grant Cardone made his money, made his first fortune, and leveraged it into real estate. But his first fortune was teaching used car salespeople how to sell a car. So he's freaking intense. He's intense. I mean, he's got all the intensity of a used car salesman. Right, which is why his personality just reflects that, right? So, anyways, my point is what do you do with the information? See, we could, and everyone else, talk about what we need to know about the seller, which is the math and what it's worth, etc. But the key here is once we get that information, what do we do with it? Right? So, number one, what particular order should it be in? And is it suitable in that order? Right? Two, how do we make the information fit or ready for our offer? Do we need this information when preparing the offer? You see what I'm saying here?
I think so.
Three, the most important, how do we arrange all of the information so we know that it matters?
And this would be on the memorandum or at the end of the conversation?
Just the conversation in general. This is the confusion. This is what I'm telling you. There's an out point. It's out gradient because, okay, let me just give you number 4. So 4 is, what information do we need to put into or placed into a suitable manner?
Well, I thought you had that figured out by asking price first, and then the payment, then the term. So am I missing something, like something beside that?
Well, so once you get that information, what do you do with it?
Well, if he agreed that those are the numbers, can't you just put it in the memorandum and just go ahead?
I'm making sure that I elaborate that very clear today because that's what the confusion is. It's kind of like this. Watch this. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
You have a hallway in your house. Okay, just picture a hallway in your house. Right?
I got one.
You know, whatever rooms are off of it, but there's a hallway.
Yeah.
We get 4 painters that come to our house. And they have brushes, they have their clothes on, they have ladders, they have spackling, they have the paint, they have everything they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you stand there and you say, thanks guys for showing up, or girls, whatever they are. Thanks folks for showing up.
Yep.
Paint.
Yeah.
The order's paint. What's going to happen? I mean, if they're good, if they work together. Now, I'm talking about complete strangers that don't know one another. That's the painters. If they work together, they might have a system. But if they haven't worked together, who's going to paint what wall? Who's going to paint the ceiling? Who's going to put the drop cloth down? It's going to be confusion, right?
Sure.
That, in my mind, is what our creative real estate rookies are doing. What I'm proposing is, okay, so you got 4 painters that are that don't know one another, and you say, painter number 1, I need you to paint this wall. Painter number 2, I need you to paint that wall. Painter number 3, I need you to paint the ceiling. Painter number 4, I need you to make sure that everything stays clean, and you help the other painters. You're the assistant.
Okay.
It's the same information. It's the same painters. It's just how do you organize it?
Sure.
How do you put it together structurally, like a puzzle?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is most people like myself teach this is the information, but if you showed them where it plugged into, it makes it easier to teach to the creative real estate person, because it's like, take block number 1 and put it here. Take block number, oh, wait a minute. You're talking about block number 2, but the seller's talking about block number 5. So what do you do now? Because you're not going in order. Oh, okay, no problem. Block number 5 goes over here, and then you come back to block number 2.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what happens with our rookies, is they don't know where to put the information. So they feel like they need to get all of the information because it might be important, because they don't know the difference between the important information and the non-important information, because they don't know where to put the information. They don't know how to use it. They don't know what's pertinent to making the offer. So when I say in the formula, number 3, in the 4-part formula, find out what's needed and wanted, right? Are we collecting data correctly so we can place it in our offer so that the seller feels like we've listened to them and are prepared to give them what they want?
And is that where the emotional part comes in?
Yeah, whatever it is, mathematically or emotionally. Did you know that was very important? Right? So let me give you an example. I was in a house, I don't know, it was before COVID. I don't even know why this popped in my head. I think it was in Naugatuck. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there, which is why I use this example all the time. And I'm standing in the kitchen, and I asked the guy, so what made you decide to sell the house today? What do you mean? Well, it's not easy to sell a house. I mean, you got to go through a lot of stuff to sell a house. It's a lot of work. He goes, oh, yeah. So why are you going through that work? Like, what do you want in the end? You know what he said? I live 45 minutes away. He actually lived in the same town I do. I live 45 minutes away. And I'm sick and tired of coming out here checking on it. In the winter, it's checking on the heat to make sure the electricity on. In the summertime, I got to cut the grass. I got to take care of it. and my wife is telling me don't sell the house, we should keep the house, but she doesn't have to do that. She doesn't have to leave work at 6 or 7 o'clock at night and come out here, or take a Saturday off and come out here and do that. And I don't want that anymore.
It's always a person who doesn't have to do the work that's pushing to hang on to the money, but they don't have to do the aggravation. So that's not even fair.
I don't want to do that.
I think I remember that guy a few years ago. Remember the story. See, that's an example of where the money's not the issue.
Right.
This guy had aggravation.
Yeah.
How much is aggravation worth?
Right. Well, in his particular case, he could sell it and get the money, and then it would solve his problem. But the money didn't solve his problem. It was getting rid of it that solved the problem.
Right.
What we don't talk about enough is the cost to sell. So for him to get rid of that problem, if he got all money now, the cost to sell, what most people don't realize is the first 15% of their profit is the cost to sell for the transaction in the conventional real estate world.
Yep.
15% of their profit goes to all the legal fees. Not legal fees, all the fees, like
all the closing, everything, selling, buying,
the marketing or the realtor has fees, the banker has fees, the insurance has fees, the closing has fees, all
tax fees.
All the professionals have fees, and it adds up to usually about 15%. Right? So we need to bring ourselves to the seller, the buyer, and the deal into our frame of mind. Which is why I have spent so much time over the past months talking about the 4 pieces of information that you need to make a deal. Here's what I'm trying to say. We spend way too much time worrying about getting data. Nowhere near enough time showing students where to place the data so it matters and is used correctly. Which is why I have spent way too much time and money lately on how to organize it all. I'm not going to tell you, but you would be blown away. When I release this before Thanksgiving of 2022, you are going to be blown away with what I have done. You personally, Peter. You're going to be blown away. Which is why I have spent way too much time and money lately on how to organize all this. Because I've realized this is a big black hole. And it's stopping creative real estate people from learning. It's a gaping hole. I started off with my paper calculator, which I'm going to give to you today. So I have a paper calculator. It's on paper, which we call the Creative Real Estate Offer Worksheet.
Yep.
That's how I started off. I started off, a year ago with that?
Yeah, that was a good one. We get stuck when we get numbers because we're not quite sure how it's going to sell, We're not, as rookie-ish people, are not as familiar how it's going to sell. So Bill figured that out with all the work you do. The other side of the story, like if you buy something, you have to know how to sell it so you know what you're doing with it. So
it's backwards. So if you know that you can sell a pencil for $1, then negotiating the pencil is easy because you know it's $1 and you know it's 10 cents for cost to develop it.
Sure.
So now it costs you 10 cents to make the pencil and you know you can get $1, so you got to get somewhere between the 10 cents and the $1 to make a profit. So what I figured out is when you're making offers, there's so many people that are worried about making offers, and what happens is they don't know how much they can sell for it. Yeah. So lately, Sean, my other partner, has been a 27-year-old millennial, has geniused out on us because what he did, unbeknownst to my belief, well, I knew he was doing it when he was doing it, he changed my system miraculously. And here's what he did. He started in Ohio, because we're in Connecticut. Well, he's now in Florida, but we're in Connecticut. He miraculously started signing people up with options. Well, give me an option for 30 days. I will go find a buyer and I'll find out how much the property's worth. So if you're worried about how much a property's worth, just sign an option agreement, bring it to the market, and let your buyers tell you. Then you could go back to your seller and say, well, I could do this, I could do that, and I could do this.
So that's before you even give the offer, right? Yeah. There's no offer. How much? He goes, I don't know how much. Give me an option. I'll find out and let you know. That really is kind of talk about controlling the property, not owning it, taking the risk out, but leaving yourself all the benefits. That's crazy.
Right.
Good work, Sean.
Nobody talks about that, right? So,
No.
so anyways, in the description today is a link to this paper calculator that I'm talking about. Exactly. We don't have enough time because we're going to have to go. We're at 59 minutes. So there's a paper calculator in there that organizes the information that you need so it's not confusing.
Yep.
We've talked about this before. Reversing the process. Know what you can sell for before you buy. And it makes deal structuring way easier. Then I took the idea and put it on steroids. Right now we have a high-powered developer beginning an electronic version of the calculator. So now you ask questions, and this will be released in another, and the only place you're going to get this, actually that's not true, the only place you're going to get the full version of it is in Creative REI Replay. We have a dumbed down version that we're going to give. The URL is called creativerealestatecalculator.com. And what we're going to have is the front page so you can put the numbers in and it can at least tell you which deal to do. And you won't be able to go further than that. In Creative REI Replay, it has checklists and what to say to the customer and all kinds of back-end stuff.
Yep.
Right? But the calculator, so now what's happening is it's me making your deals for you. So the reason why I developed this, and it took me this whole podcast an hour to tell you this, is because now I'm going to give you the questions, the script, ask this question, put the number in here. Now pay attention to this, Peter. You ready? I'm going to say something very profound right now. I'm
sitting down, Bill.
I want you to understand this, you and the listeners, because I want this moment in time. That I'm putting a stake like they did on the moon. They put the flag on the moon. I'm putting my stake in right now. I personally, with Sean and David, who's the owner of Creative REI Replay, we, all three of us, followed my ideas. Sean put them together, and David's working on the websites. Right? Here's what happens. As of today, this podcast, episode number 329, I am taking creative real estate acquisition managers from having to have years of training to being order takers. You will no longer need years of training to do this. You will need to, we're going to hire, and we, oh, by the way, I'm going to tell you something right now that I shouldn't tell you. We had multiple meetings. David had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a tool that is a virtual assistant that talks to you on the computer. So the calculator is the beginning stages of it, because the calculator will be you talking to the seller or a VA talking to the seller, getting the information, putting it in the right position so you can make an offer. Because in the Creative REI Replay, here's what's going to happen. You ask a key question, you put the number in the calculator. It tells you red, yellow, green light on which one of the slot deal, option deal, rent to own, rehab, retail, wholesale, owner finance, whatever it is. It tells you red, yellow, green light. You click on the deal. So suppose you want to do a subject to deal. It goes to a page where all the math is on one side and all the questions of what you need to do. There's a checklist of what you need to do. So you go over that with your seller to make sure they understand. Okay? Then you click save, and a box pops up and it asks you if you want to print a memorandum. And it actually makes the memorandum for you. And what we're working on now, which we haven't figured out, another box that will pop up and allow you to send it for an electronic signature while you're on the phone. That's me making your offers for you. That's taking the data, asking the right question, taking the information, putting it in the right place, and making an offer so that a VA could do it for you, a virtual assistant could do it for you. Right?
That's crazy, Bill.
So the point is that, let me make sure I got everything in my notes here. So once you and the seller decide what the seller's willing to do, you can click the deal name. Like I said, another page pops up, and there's a checklist of what you need to go over with that seller, line by line. So now, A, I'm giving you the exact piece of information you need. B, I'm telling you where to put it in the offer. I'm doing it all for you automated. And I promise you, if I could have my way, which is not always the case, by the beginning of the year, we're going to have this electronic VA. And the seller clicks on a button, and this girl pops up on the screen, and she starts asking the questions for you. You give her the answers, they go into the calculator, and it gets sent to you to review and go over the deal with the customer. Now I don't have any human function in there changing questions and doing stupid shit like I've always not wanted.
Yeah.
That's where we're going. Okay? And I'm telling you this because I'm not afraid of anybody copying it, because first of all, what we're doing, somebody will copy the calculator. We'll have copycats that will copy the calculator, but they won't be able to handle the other stuff, because David spent hundreds of thousands of dollars making this software. So it's incredible. So that's the podcast for today. I hope you understand the significance that took me a whole hour to get to is A, what information do you need? And B, what do you do with it once you get it? Mm-hmm. How do you take the results of your answers and turn them into the perfect offer for the seller so they say yes?
So you mean when we're talking to people on the phone and they give us all the information, and we get to the end of the page with our notes, we don't go,
Exactly. What do I do next?
Right. Hey, folks, you know that feeling? I got to talk to Bill. Yep. Sure, a little old call Bill.
Yep.
Just line up on down, just line up.
And it takes my whole teaching process and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I have alluded to, if you go into the description of wherever you're watching or listening to this, there's a link there, and you can download the paper version, which is a 2-page document that allows you to ask the right questions and put the data in the right box so you can devise 3 offers on page 2 easily. So it organizes all the information for you so you don't waste time asking the wrong things of the seller. And more importantly, it'll force you to be an acquisition manager by filling out the data, because it's going to ask the pertinent information you need, and it's going to show you where to actually put the information so you can structure an offer immediately and not feel like you've never done this before in your life. Okay, so go ahead, click on that link. It's in the description. It's a PDF document. You can print it and start using it. Also, make sure that you subscribe to our channel wherever you're listening to us. Make sure you leave us a review. And if you need me personally, you can go to Flipping Houses for Rookies. There is a bunch of stuff there that you can get for free if you want to go there. It's a free stuff page. There's the podcasts are there. Everything you need is on Flipping Houses for Rookies if this is your first time, never heard of it. And also you can go into WhatsApp Messenger and type in Let's Talk Real Estate and get in that group as well. Okay, or if you don't know how to do that, send me a support ticket and I'll send you a link. All right, so Peter, thanks for being with me today. What people don't know is Peter actually had an operation on his knee a few days ago, and he's here under duress.
Well, it's not that. It's pretty good today. Yeah. Look! I can bend it. Oh, you don't see that? Yeah. It's bending today.
So thank you, Peter, for doing that. And we're over and out. We will talk to you on podcast number 330, which, by the way, the name of it is How to Plan Your Creative Real Estate Activity to Suit You Comfortably.
Oh, that's a nice one.
How to Plan Your Creative Real Estate Activity to Suit You Comfortably. Podcast.
See, Bill does think of us.
All right, guys. Have a good week. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.